dirty dog. Why did it do this? All right. I got to remove. Twitter just changed their terms of policy and it won't let me go live on Twitter. That's kind of nice for it to do right as I went live. So, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. I am your host, Pat Finley. I am solo tonight as far as hosts go, but I do have a very special guest. We have Matt Showers on. Some of you may know him from Instagram as the HVAC grammarian. He'll catch you slipping. He hasn't messed with me in a while, but he'll catch you slipping and he'll let it known. But it's all in good fun. He's not being serious. He just likes to give people a hard time. So I'm glad to have him back on. He did an episode last year at some point, and I'm glad to have him back on. He has a really cool podcast, Trade Therapy. I did a little segment with him and Gary one day, and it's really cool. It shines a light on we are technicians, big strong men, women in the trades, getting dirty hands, clean money, that whole mantra. But deep down inside, we all still have problems. We all still have issues to work through, and he does a really good job highlighting that and letting people know that they're not alone. And so, but first, let me get this out of the way because I'll just get right into it if not. So the RLS summer tool promos are back. For a limited time, you can save $500 on your choice of 4 different tool and jaw sets used with RLS press fittings. That includes the Klauke 19 kilonewton tool and 5 jaw set, plus 8 jaw sets that are compatible with a wide variety of press tools, including my favorite, Rigid, Milwaukee, and many others. For complete details, visit rapidlockingsystem.com/save500. With RLS press fittings, you get reliable joints in about 10 seconds with no flame, no fire hazards, no brazing materials, no burn permits, no fire spotters, and no nitrogen purging. Plus, you're getting the most proven HVAC press fittings on the market. The only ones that have been in use since 2015 and have more than 20 million installed fittings in the field. Again, get all the details on the RLS summer tool promos at rapidlockingsystem.com/save500. I'm going to stumble all over myself tonight, man. So, I'm glad to have you back on, man. You're doing a lot of stuff. I wanted to have you come on and just, tell your story, how you got into the trades. And of course, we'll get into trade therapy here in a little bit. Everybody's got a little different path of the trade. Some of them, their fathers or mothers or somebody else brought them in, and that was kind of my story. My dad did exactly what I did. He started off HVAC and he went to kitchen stuff and refrigeration. And I didn't want to do that. I was an electrician. And I kind of got sucked over into this side, and it's been a blessing. It's a really cool industry. I'm never bored. I have ADHD, and you could tell by probably because I'm not staring at the screen. I'm everywhere but the screen, but I have ADHD. Lives pretty well for that. So let's talk about your story, though. How did you get involved in the HVAC field?
So preface is that my dad, was an auto mechanic for the longest time. He was kind of like almost like similar story to me. Like he went to college, he had a degree, bachelor's degree, and then ended up then for the longest time like basically being an auto mechanic. That was what he was kind of good at. And then his dad was like I think he was like some kind of combustion engineer for Bethlehem Steel, which is not too far from here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So like that's a bit of a background, but for me anyway, my first like exposure to the trades was actually when I was in college. I was getting my own degree, but then after I graduated, then I was working at the college. They'd hired me as like a maintenance person or whatever, like PM, like just be like a PM person. Like I knew nothing. So they're like, yeah, you can change they showed me how to, filters and belts, that sort of thing. I was like, like your standard maintenance mechanic now. And that what kind of exposed me to at least HVAC and plumbing and electrical as well. But I was like, HVAC is like, that seems like it's interesting. It kind of combines plumbing and electrical, but then you got this, its own other side to it. But I didn't really think anything of it at the time. It's just like, oh, this is a cool thing or whatever, because I had my own grand aspirations of using my degree for other things or whatever. And then then fast forward, let's say about 6-7 years after I graduated. And my wife and I were sitting down one night and we were like just going over our budget, and we were, doing all right. But then we basically looked at everything and we're going, we're not going to make it. Like we kind of keep going on the trajectory we're going. Like we're not going to make it. Like we need to fix something. And at that point, my wife was working, and we had our kids, and we had one kid, and we were pregnant with our second, and she was like, well, we need to do something. I said, well, I need to do something. And so then that's when I finally took the plunge. Went to a school that had like a 1-year HVAC program. I mean, it wasn't, the best year, but I mean, because my wife was, like I said, my wife was pregnant as I started. My second daughter was actually born while I was still in school. So that was a little bit of a rough patch thing there. But all in all, though, I'm super glad that I did that. So that's how I got into it. While I was still in school, I finished my first term. So that the school it divided into 4 terms. First term was like refrigeration cycle and electricity. Like, here's the basics, like, to get you started. Second
Here's
term was second term was refrigeration. Third term was air conditioning, which then bled with you finished with heat pumps, which then got into heating. So then you got into like gas and oil heat a little bit. So that was a year-long program. I ended up getting hired by a company when I'd finished my first term. So I'm like greener than green with this small mom and pop residential company, learning while I'm still in school. Just not, I mean, long story short on that front was like I didn't know. I was just like an install helper, and not a very good one. I mean, I'll admit it. I was it was, I mean, yeah, I mean, not knowing anything. I mean, I'm still learning in school. It's like I got superheat and subcool, that sort of thing. Like, they're sending me out on some like maintenances for air conditioning with heat pumps. So I mean, but these guys were like doing like combustion analysis on everything. So that was like, this is like all over my head kind of stuff. And there's only, like I said, there's like 10 employees total. Half of it was like plumbers, and then the other half was the HVAC. So it was, long story short on that was that whenever I did leave, the guy was like, "Yeah, I probably won't hire someone as green as you again." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I get it. That's fair."
At least he was honest. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, and so while I was in school, they had talked about well, this goes into like how I got into like residential light commercial. Then was the school I was with, they taught there's like I think, I'm not sure if it's a national organization, ABC Contractors, I think it's some kind of organization. Yeah, okay, but anyway, so there was like a bunch of them that they had listed at our school. So I just sent out like a shotgun blast of applications to all these different companies, and this is early 2013 for a time reference. And one company got back to me. Like, out of all of those, now it's laughable at this point. Like, it's like one out of all these, like it had to have been like at least 10 companies, but one got back to me, and that's where I ended up working then for basically for 10 years up until I left there last year. And now I'm working for a major manufacturer doing, large commercial and some industrial stuff now. Like, it's so crazy. Like you're saying, like this, the wired world of the things you see, and like being with this manufacturer and, working with chillers and large rooftops. It's mind blowing. Like, my first month, I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's like, I felt like I was drinking from the fire. Like, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hydrant, and I can only get like so much. Like, I'm only getting like little drops. And now a year in, I'm like, I'm realizing like, oh crap, some of this stuff is sticking. Like, oh shoot, like now I need to be responsible, and I actually know some things now.
no, become invaluable. What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, it's like you and I were talking before the show, where it's like they sent me to earlier this year. I got sent to a VRF training class. It's like VRF basic for the brand that we represent and work with. So it's like now that I've been trained and I'm technically certified, it's like, well, now you can go out there and do repairs on these things, and help troubleshoot and actually do startup stuff. And I'm like, wait, what? I thought you guys do that. Oh no, we don't do that. What? Wait, I thought the VRF guys do that. Wait, no, you don't. Oh, we do. Oh, okay.
Funny, yeah. Like, the brand you work for, it's amazing the different size, like the small residential, all the way up to giant chillers. Like, they do it all, man.
Oh, it's nuts. What cracks me up too is like I get sent out to do startups. So like I commiserate now with Matt Waxer and Ilya and like Jay or whomever else, like on startup and commissioning woes, where it's like, is the site ready for startup? Yes, it is, but not really. Like, dang,
Yeah, I get that in my world too. Like, they sent me out to IU Stadium and football stadium. They're like, "Oh, we don't need a site survey. The dealer says everything's good to go." And our rule generally is we do not do an install without a site survey to make sure water's there, electric's there, gas there, make sure everything's good. I get there and I stack the units. I'm like, "Where are they going?" They're like, "Oh, they go in here." I'm like, I have one gas for three. I have one gas for 3 units. I have one water line for 3 units, and there's no electric. They're like, oh, it plugs in. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a 208. It's everything under here is 120. And they're like, oh, we'll have our electrician change it. I'm like, no. I'm like, you guys don't know what this bus panel is. This bus system is. Do you? Like, where's breakers in the end? I was like, no, there's one 100 amp 3 phase breaker. I said, there's three 120-volt bus bars running this entire length. I said, pull this panel off. And I pull it off, showed the electrician. He's like, oh, we can't do this. I was like, yeah. I was like, there's a reason why I come out ahead of time and you guys didn't want it. I went back yesterday, 2 weeks later, and I started them up yesterday. I'm like, oh,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare. I couldn't imagine doing some stuff you guys do. I see Matt, and he's starting up a unit the size of a semi trailer. I'm like, holy smokes, what is that thing, dude?
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, this is, it's got 100 tons of cooling with, with so many BTUs of heating for dehumidification. It's like, what kind of space is serving that? Like, what the heck?
He's like, oh, it's an auditorium or something. It's like a big pool or a big gymnasium. I'm like, what? I'm like, how does Canada have all this stuff?
Oh, I know. It's well, again, it just goes to show it's just kind of crazy to see like the wild world of HVAC, where it's like, yeah, you see the stuff from Canada. Like, I follow some people that are over in Ireland and England. It's wild to see the stuff that they do over there. It's like some of it's similar, but some of it's different. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I think it's just so much fun. And then there's us chiller guys that are the chiller Swifties, as we like to say now, thanks to another thanks to what's his name, Matt. That's another Matt down in Houston, who works for the same manufacturer I do. Like I think he's the one that started that. And now we're all like chiming in, where it's like we got like Ben Mayberry, myself, I can't think of his name, but HVAC Animation up in Canada, like he's doing it now too. I mean, there's a whole bunch of us now. I'm like, where are we? Where are all the chiller guys? Let's band together.
I follow through. I'll see it pop up on like a story or something. I'm like, oh, let's go see where all these guys are at now, because they tag each other in it. I'm like, this is funny. So that's cool. I love seeing like my side of the kitchen side. I follow some guys over in Australia. I follow some guys over in the UK, and the UK guys absolutely hate us because like our kitchens, like it's the same exact equipment, but our kitchens are like twice the size of theirs. I'm like, I've talked to the guys like, oh no, when I work on that grill, they have to pull it out. I climb behind it and they push it back in because no one can walk through if the grill's pulled out. I'm like, dude, I got like room for people to stand here with the grill pulled out. And they're like, no, we don't have that. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and then they're actually make more money too, but that's another point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, but and then like on the startup side too, what's funny is like there have been a handful of times where I've actually still started up like residential style equipment. Like there's a school, they have it's a school. They have, I think it was like I had 19 condensers that I was supposed to be starting. Now they were tied into like commercial unit ventilators inside, like with so it's DX cooling with the hot water coil inside. But still, it's like, start up these condenser units that are like, could be used in a residential application. I'm like, what? Seriously? Well, they want us. Okay, whatever. I'll do it. I mean, I'll start. So I do like I've done stuff like sets is still like 1.5 tons up to a couple 100-ton chiller. I've done a startup on already. And it's just it's wild. I do it. It's just crazy. Like I run the whole gamut.
That's one heck of a salesman to sell that. The startup on the 1.5-ton unit.
Well, that wasn't even the salesman actually. At least on that site, that was just the school district just saying, yeah, we want these started up properly. So they're the ones that requested us to do the actual like start. They're like, yeah, we want to make sure this is all good to go.
That's cool. That's cool. They want that equipment to last. And one of my favorite environments to work in is really schools. I enjoy schools. Generally, everybody's nice. As far as my side of the kitchen, no one's really in a hurry. It's generally always clean for the most part. Now, I'm not doing any crazy inner city schools, but I enjoy schoolwork for sure.
Yeah, the school. I mean, there's a whole lot of schools because a lot of them are still running with they're still running with like that hot water, cold water stuff. So chillers come into play there. Now some of the ones that I'm dealing with now, like they're these old buildings. They've only had hot water heating, and now they're switching over to VRF cooling, which is kind of wild to me. Like they're choosing to use VRF cooling, but then still use the hot water heating. Like they don't want to use, so I'm putting in heat pump VRF systems, but they're only running it for cooling. They don't want it running for heating at all. And I'm like, but why? Why not just make it heat recovery and be done?
We got these big giant boilers. What are we going to do with them?
Actually, I
Just
think they did. Well, I think what they did also do with some of the schools is they actually did like put it. I think they might have put in like combis, I think, or something. I think they did like a full like I guess they got some kind of grant money ready to like do a full like I don't know the full scope of the project. I just worry about the stuff I need to worry about. I don't touch boilers anymore now. That's the thing.
yeah.
So
I got several schools that he worked for, and I walk right by. Like my kids' was sitting outside by the big, the big chiller or whatever they got outside. I'm like, man, that'd be cool to work on. I'll pull up, I'll park somewhere, and there's a big cooling tower. I'm like, I wonder what's inside that thing. I'm like, you hear the water running, the fan running. You're like, what's in there? I want to see that.
mhm.
I always say, I'm like, I'll get mad. I'm going to start doing that, and then I never do it.
Oh yeah, and yeah, like chillers. It's just that's wild in and of itself. Like you've got at least I mean I'm not totally I mean I know like my introduction to them is like small chillers, which is like so a small chiller is like 30 tons. That's a small chiller. And that's like that might have scroll compressors in it still with 410A. And I'm like, I get that. Like that was when I first pulled up on one of those, I'm like, oh, I get this 410A refrigerant with the scroll compressor. I got this. I understand you. And then you get into like screw machines and then centrifugals, and that's where it's like, okay, that's where things change a whole lot. Then you got air cooled versus water cooled and all that or whatever.
Yeah, some of those chillers, I hear them start up. I'm like, what is that sound? I'm like, what was that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, screws can be pretty loud. I mean,
Yeah,
you just hear like you have to almost have like walking with if it's in a mechanical room, you have to like walking with hearing protection at times because that whir is just crazy loud.
yeah, it's a weird sound. The first time I heard a screw, I was like, "Oh, what just happened?"
Like
Make that sound. I'm like, "Oh, that's normal." I'm like, "Dude, I don't know how you guys work around this stuff, man."
oh, especially if it's a water cooled one in a mechanical room. That's the thing. It just reverberates all over the place. I mean, I like the air cooled ones because at least that's outside. It kind of like dissipates. But man, when it's in the mechanical room, oh my gosh.
Nice, nice. So you do all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like I said earlier, I have ADHD, and my job suits me well because I never know what I'm going to do. I may work on a walk-in cooler, I may work on a milk cooler, I may work on
Mhm.
a combi oven, a steamer, I may work on a hot well. I mean, a toaster. I mean, I never know what I'm getting into. And it's cool. So it seems like you probably had the same thing. Like one day you may be doing a big chiller, the next day you're doing a package unit and that kind of stuff. So are you mainly startup, or do you do a lot of service work as well?
So it's still service. I'm now that I've been with them a little while, like we all get assigned like different accounts. So like I have like I'm starting to get like my own accounts now that I'm like the primary person to be taken care of for service or whatever. So yeah, that's yeah. So it is like a combination, but yeah, like we all kind of like pitch in. I mean, there's I think we have about 30 techs. I mean, like I'm on call 3 times this whole year, for example, because that's how many guys we have in the rotation. But what's crazy though, here's what's crazy is that like we are so busy right now that I swear we could have like 5 or 6 other guys come in and we'd still like I mean, it's just we've got so much work. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, it's everyone talks about the labor shortage. It's like it's not just like the private, like what I consider the private contractors, like the ones that are doing residential, light commercial, or just strictly residential. I mean, it's everybody. Like even like the big big manufacturers are like, yeah, we need people. Like I mean, it's nuts.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, people blame it like people don't want to work or what, but I mean, I just think they built out so fast that like the demand exceeded the labor force. I know they say like 8 to 1, aging out 8 to 1 ever coming in. But in my industry specifically, I mean, dude, every corner you look, there's a new restaurant popping up. It's like, man, how do they staff the restaurant? And then it's like, now people got to fix that stuff. Like, it
Mhm.
just exceeded, we grew as far as, buildings and restaurants and schools and stuff faster than we could, staff the people to take care of this stuff, I think is a part of the problem. But I mean, yeah, a lot of guys are aging out, but man, if you're young and you want to work hard, make some money, now's your time to shine, man.
Yeah, I mean the nice thing too is they just started. We actually we have like an apprenticeship program. So like we have a younger guy. He's out of college, and he's been with us a year now. So like he tested out of his first year, but he's basically like one of us. Like he's in the rotation. Like he's doing stuff. He's doing his own thing. But the other thing they introduced then too was a co-op. Like we actually have excuse me, we actually have she just graduated actually, so she's a senior. She just graduated from the local Votech, and but she's like, really, like we couldn't like do well because of like how it works out, because she's not 18. Like there's only so much she can do. Like she really can't do a lot. She can do a lot of watching and learning, but she's turning 18 here soon, so I'll be curious to see then how they proceed with her, as far as like, making her, whether she's gonna be like, hey, you're 18, you can do all the things now, you're full-fledged, like you're all good, like you can, get your arc flash on and start doing lockout tag out and start working on these 460 volt high amperage chillers or whatever. I don't know, but that's, that's the thing, is like they're trying to do what they can to get as many people as they can as well, because it's just crazy.
Yeah, I have two sons. One's 21 and one's 18, and they both work with me. My youngest graduated like a month and a half ago, and he's been with us. I think it's his fifth week, sixth week maybe, and he's liking it. I never thought both my kids would work here. I figured my youngest would. He always he's been more mechanical. Like I'm working on stuff, he's out there helping me work on the lawnmower, the golf cart, the vehicle. If I'm building something, he's helping me. He's always been that way, and he always said he'd do it, but his older brother's one that surprised me because he was a prototypical jock. He was always playing sports, doing that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. He didn't show any interest. Like one day, he's like, "I'm gonna apply to work for you." I was like, "The hell you are?" And I was like, "No way, dude." I was like, "I don't want that voodoo on me." And he said, "Well, I'm gonna do it regardless." I was like, "Well, I guess I'll help you then." So, but he's done really well. He's just he wasn't the most mechanically inclined when he first started, but he's got the right attitude. He has an attitude where you will not beat me, and I think it just came from playing sports and just he's always a
Yeah.
small playing sports, and he just had to prove himself. And I think he just carried that over into his career now, and he just something won't beat him, man. He'll call me, he'll look online, he'll call the manufacturer, he'll do anything he can to avoid just saying I can't figure it out, and it's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it too. It's just, yeah, you might not be the most mechanically minded, and I think that's what, where I work is trying to do as well. And I think that's what other guys, even where I was before, my prior boss, he had actually hired somebody that was like, some 19-year-old kid, didn't know anything.
Mhm.
Didn't know, and he rode around with, there was one guy that he rode around with primarily. We all teased him. We're like, oh, look, it's there goes, there goes that guy with his son. We were so we're like,
Freaking
yep, you're the, we had to
yeah.
laugh, yeah, because it was, but what now, like I still stay in touch with the guys from my prior company, and like he's doing well. Like he apparently, they're like, yeah, he's a smart cookie, man. I'm like, yeah, like you could see it. Like he actually like literally had like a notepad and was like writing notes down like in his notepad about like all this different stuff. And and you know what? All of us were saying, we're like, what? One day it's all gonna click, and he's
Mhm.
just gonna rocket ship. He's just gonna just take off like a rocket ship, and I think he's doing it. And that's just it. It's like it's the attitude, like like your son, like you're saying with your son. It's not so much what it's just like that if you have the right attitude, if you're a decent person, like if you're not some schmuck that's like to you coin a phrase from else we know and love, a know-it-all. you know
Yeah.
that's just it. Like if you're just going to be a decent person, you're just like, you have that go-getter attitude, then yeah, that's what people are looking for at this point. It's just like, we can teach you, and we can train you. You can
Mhm.
get that head knowledge, but if you're not, if you don't have the good character qualities that we're looking for, well then here's the door. Sorry. you know
Yeah, I told my boss that concept. My boss yesterday, he was asking me about how Dalton, my youngest, is doing. I was like, he's doing good. He's catching on. He's he wants to get in there and get his hands on stuff, and he tore something apart today on his own. And I was working on something else, there just in case. And but I said, I can't wait to see in 3 years like where these two are, because these two are going to be like competing because they're brothers. One's gonna have a couple of years. I think it's gonna be fun to watch because one's just gonna have the attitude you can't beat me, and the other one's has the I think he's gonna have the mechanical and the brain side down. And I think they're gonna be probably a pretty good duo to have on your side no matter what they're doing.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. It's like, I like to think of it as there's a verse, the Bible verse that, it's as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And like sometimes you got that where you got like those people that, they sharpen each other and you're just like, all right, you know what? Fine. I'll show you. No, I'll show you. No, I'll show you. That back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, and that saying because his football coach used to use that all the time, and that was on their shirt. Iron sharpens iron, and
Mm-hmm.
that is what it is. Maybe it's that exact mentality right there. He probably doesn't even realize from a Bible verse, truthfully, but I think that's the mentality he has. My older son does. So it's really cool working with my kids. Though I never thought it would happen.
Yeah.
It's cool. We have bad days and we'll call each other and be like, hey, what'd you do? I didn't talk to him at all today. And I walked into the living room. My wife was in there on the phone with him. I was like, oh, what'd you do today? What you got going on tomorrow? You need help with anything? No, I got it. I'm good. I'm like, okay. Well, if you need anything, just get a hold of me. It's cool. It's
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like having a little friend you work with. uh, he moved out. My youngest still lives here, but he moved out, so I don't get to give him more time. My youngest actually, he rides me. He's got a van that sits out behind the barn, and he don't even drive it. Just he rides me. I think he has it for when I'm off work or I'm doing something else. He needs to go help somebody else. So it's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
So you got any kids?
Yeah. So I've got 5 kids actually.
Busy man.
Well, and I've got a 6th on the way here. So yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah. So I've got 3 girls and 2 boys, and then 1 undetermined right now. But my son, any of my kids though, what's really fun with my kids is that they'll ride their bikes or whatever. So like anytime something needs to be fixed, like with their bikes, I just kiddingly say, well, bring it over to my bike shop, which is just my van, because that's where all the tools are. They're all sitting in the come it over to the bike shop, so they bring it over to like the side door of the van, and I'm just like opening up and like pulling out whatever I need to fix whatever might be wrong, like something needs tightened or loosened or whatever, or I've had to change some wheels on a couple of them or whatever. But yeah, they know. They're like, oh, Dad can fix it probably. So it's nice because like that's how it was with my dad too, where it's just like, oh wait, hey Dad, can you we need you to fix something or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have that. I don't necessarily know if any of my kids really would be interested in doing what I do, but sometimes it's kind of fun because I'll let them like, they're like, or they'll like, oh, they'll ask to like help with something or whatever. Like a couple years ago, during COVID, we bought a trampoline, but we didn't have like we had the safety net, but we didn't have like the framing for it, like to hold it up. So I just grabbed some like Schedule 80 PVC pipe to hold it up or whatever, and then some hose clamps. And my girls were kind of like, can we help you with this? I'm like, yeah, sure. Here, I'll put the hose clamp in place, and you just like tighten this down until it starts making, the impact wrench starts making noise, and then you're good to go. And so they were, so they got to play with that for a little bit, play with an impact gun for a small thing.
Yeah, that's when my youngest got involved, was when I'd go to the shop to clean up my vans, organize my van. I'd take him because he was small, and I didn't want to climb in the back of the van. I didn't want to climb my fat butt back. So I'd be like, grab that shelf, grab that tote, grab this, put this here, and he'd just run up back and forth down the van. And next thing you know, he's like, I want to work with you. I'm like, okay, you can work with me. And then here it is, 10, 12 years later, he's working with me. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of it too. Is like I was never exposed to this. I mean, I saw it with my dad, but he was an auto mechanic, and he didn't really talk about it. But it was just more like auto mechanics. You go to the garage, you work your shift or whatever, and then you come home, and that's it. It's not like us in in service trades where it's like we're going to people's houses, to people's businesses. Like we have to take all the stuff with us to actually go and fix the stuff. People aren't coming to us; we're going to them. So I think having exposure to that is useful, and I think too, even with people like where I go to church, whatever, like they know, like some of them know what I do, so I think there's some exposure there. In fact, even last year they asked me for the like a little co-op that we have going on there. They asked if I would do like a presentation because they want to expose the high schoolers to like these different trades or different careers or whatever. So I was there to represent HVAC and plumbing. Because they kind of go hand in hand, but it was just, I was just like, look, here's what construction trades are like. I mean, yeah, like it's not exactly the greatest environment sometimes with with the people that you might be working with, but you can certainly learn a lot. And a lot of it for me was just like the real world skills I've gotten from all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first started doing this, I didn't want my kids to do it. I mean, and the longer I did it, the more I realized, what the demand was and potential was. And then I started seeing it a little differently. But, when I first started doing this, I was like, I don't want my kids to do this. I want my kids to go to school. I want my kids to be a lawyer. I want my kids to be a doctor. I want my kids to do this. But I mean, you can't force your kids to do anything. Like they're gonna do what they want to do. All you can do is just support them and really nurture them, help them get what they want. And they gotta learn somehow. And sometimes they learn the hard way. Sometimes they don't. So, but it's been a
Mhm.
cool
Well,
thing.
yeah, I mean, like my wife is amazing. She does she does the homeschooling for our kids, just because schools aren't the greatest.
Mhm.
Um, and so so it's nice because in that sense, like my kids can like take off with different things. Like my oldest son, he's for whatever reason, like like he'll read like like some of these military books or whatever, or like these boy like boy type things like battles and wars and all this stuff. And then next he's like, hey, look, Dad, I made this boat out of Legos off of this model that I saw or whatever. Or hey, Dad, I made this gas mask from World War I out of Legos because I saw it. He does like he just like he gets in his head like he's almost got like this engineering kind of brain with Legos, and he just makes this stuff. And you're just like, dang, dude, like what the heck? And it's like that's really freaking cool that you did that. Like even what it was like a couple years ago, we had like one of those wooden guns like someone can make like a wooden rifle, and he
Mhm.
fashioned like a Lego bayonet to so it would slide on the end of the barrel, and he made it was a bayonet because he's like learning about like American Revolution and Civil War stuff. And I'm like,
Cool.
it's just it's so cool to see like the stuff that they do. Like I mean, he's that's one example. Like I mean, all my kids do stuff like that where it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and I just look at them, I'm like, how the heck did whatever,
Where did that
like that's awesome, but oh my gosh, I don't know, I couldn't do that. That's awesome that you can, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, kids, I mean, I started off having kids. I mean, I'm 42 and I have a 23-year-old daughter, so I had kids really young. I was a
Mhm.
kid, I'm not gonna lie. It changed me dramatically. And it was probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I mean, I with the industry I'm in, I missed a lot of stuff and that was me. When I first started, I made poor financial decisions. I worked way too much to try to make up for that stuff. And when my kids were little, my wife didn't work. It didn't make sense for her to work because it was going to cost more in childcare than she'd
Oh
make.
yeah.
I mean, and you probably experienced that. I mean, you've 5 kids and a six on the way. You fully understand it. It's like, and it just it's fiscally doesn't make sense. And so I missed a lot of stuff working too much, and I feel bad, but luckily my wife was always there and my mother-in-law was always there.
Mm.
So it just, and we can, use this as a transition to get into trade therapy. I mean, we discussed some of the stuff before in the past, but it's just, it, I don't know. I mean, the trades can do a lot of good things for you, but it just, you get out what you put into it. I mean,
Mhm.
it can make or break a person. It
Oh
can
yeah,
cause
absolutely.
I mean, it's hard work. It's stressful. I mean, depending on what you're in, what side you go into. I mean, some of you can you don't new construction, you're not dealing with customers, or in my line of work, you're dealing with restaurants, and it's everything's an emergency. They call, oh, it's an emergency. I got to be out here. Our fryer's down. You got there, and they got 6 or 7 fryers, and one of them's not working. I'm like, this could have waited till tomorrow. You just called me out at 9 o'clock at night for a fryer that's you don't even really need. I'm like, this is crazy. So.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I mean, yeah, that's no, thankfully, like with where it was before, wasn't like really no, it wasn't high stress. I mean, you'd have like cranky residential customers at times, I mean that's kind of like a stereotypical thing. You'll have that. I mean, the only thing that I've had, at least with where I am now, is you know, I really don't. I was on like I was in call on in April, and I had nothing came through.
mhm,
Excuse me. And but when I was kind of found out was like one of the true emergencies happen is when someone's got a process chiller, and
mhm,
then that goes down. Like then someone's squawking, and they're like, "You better get your butt here ASAP" or whatever. I mean,
uh-huh,
because they're losing money. Like that's the thing. It's like that they're losing production time, so that's costing them money. So it's less expensive for them to be calling you out to hopefully fix it or whatever. And there's been other places like some hatcheries, like there's a handful of hatcheries that we do, and they all have chillers or whatever, and it's like one of them goes down, and then they're like, it's getting too hot, the chicks are gonna die, or whatever. I honestly don't know what they use the cold water for. I mean, I don't know, but I was at one site and I'm just like, y'all need some redundancy. If you expect, like, if you think one of these is going down, like, you need some redundancy here. It's like, and my contact, like, I get it. It's the higher ups that don't. And I'm like, well, okay. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, it's like where I am now, it's just like, the job takes as long as it takes. There's no rushing around because they want it done right. They don't want the callback. Like, they don't want that stuff to chew up time. It's like, you're doing it right. You're doing it right the first time, and you're going to take as much time as it takes to get the job done right the first time. I'm like, thank you. I mean, and they're very nonchalant about it too. They're just like, yeah, the job takes what it takes. Like, don't sweat it. Don't fret it. Just make sure you just get it done correctly. Cool.
That's a wild place to be, and I bet you're pretty relieved to get in that kind of environment. I mean, it's
Gosh, yeah.
It's probably a big change at first, but I bet it's probably pretty relieving and know that they have your back on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was so like where I was before I started working for the manufacturer it wasn't high stress, but that times you get the office that might have been like a little, like, oh, it's summertime, like in heat like this, they'd be like, they probably would have been calling me at some, like, could be at someone's house and like, well, where are you in your schedule? It was more like, where are you in your schedule? What do you have going on? And I'd be like, well, here's where I am. Here's what's going on. Well, okay. But, so whenever you get wrapped up, just give us a call. Like, it wasn't like, well, you need to get out of there. It was, I never had that, thankfully. It was just more like, you got to take care of the person that's in front of you. And I appreciate the fact that that's how their mindset was before. So, because I know some places it's like, go, 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 rush, 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 shortcuts taken. And then, but then you get the call back, because and whenever I started working for the manufacturer, there were guys that are there and they've been there for a number of years. And they're like, so how does it feel to not be in contractor mode? I'm like, well, I never really was in contractor mode to begin with, but it's even more relaxed than the before. I mean, now granted, I've not been with some of these calls where it's like, a process chillers, like I was saying, like a process chiller is going down. You got someone breathing down your neck because they're losing money, or whatever. I've not had that because, at least from what I can tell, most of the people that are smart have a service contract. So like, we're there to make sure nothing does go wrong. And if we see something that starts to go a little awry, we can catch it and fix it before it becomes a major problem. So yeah, it's definitely a nice thing. Cause yeah, most days I'm home right on time. I mean, they do, like, they expect us, they have an expectation for overtime, but it's more like if you need to wrap something up, like if it's going to take you an extra hour or two to get something done that you don't have to go back the next day, then by all means do it that way, that sort of thing. So that's kind of like a nice, it's relaxed, but it's like, well, yeah, but if you're going to be able to, if you can finish, then finish. Like, just take the extra 2.5, whatever, just that way you don't have to like go back, especially because like I'm driving, like, most times I'm driving like at least an hour. It's about an hour. I'm driving an hour one way to get to a site. So it's like, yeah, if I don't have to say, if I can save the 2-hour round trip by just taking an extra 2 hours to finish it, then cool.
That's a great attitude to have about it too. I mean, we've all worked with guys like, oh, it's 8 hours. I'm not doing any more. I mean, that's it. I got my 8. I'm going home. And that's frustrating. I mean, if you're in a situation where it's not a necessity, like you said, it's, you have an hour more work or something, go ahead and stay and do it. But some guys just, they don't care if they had 15 more minutes work, they're not doing it. It's 8 hours to go home. And I never got that, dude. I'm like, I'm here to do a job. I'm here, and if I got something going on, it's a different story. But I mean, most of the time I start early and I work, the hours I want to work. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
I've ran into some of your guys on some job sites and stuff, some newer buildings, and I always talk to them, and I like some of the stuff they're doing. We in Indianapolis, they did or where our Pacers and the basketball arena, they put like this outdoor pavilion in, and it's got a basketball court. They can also turn it into an ice skating rink. So there's this big chiller sitting out there. This thing's huge. I'm like, this thing's cool. And the guy was there starting it up because they were getting ready to have an event. and they hadn't ran it yet. So he was there starting it up. I was like, "How's this thing work?" And he was like, just showing me some stuff. I'm like, "This is cool." I was like, "I gotta get out of here because I could sit here and stare at this thing all day and like, what's this? What's this?" And the dude was really cool about it though. He wasn't like trying to shoot me off or nothing. He could tell I was genuinely interested and wanted to learn about it. So he was being really cool about it. But it was cool to see.
I had something like that happen to me where I was actually at a local it's a college, but they have some trade programs. So it's like a 2-year college, but they've got some trade programs. And I was there starting up a smaller chiller for that served cooling for a couple of the dormitories. And long story, it ended up that I had the wrong type of flow switch for the water on the water side. Like I had a flow switch that was for just water. Well, the loop had glycol in it, so I had the wrong flow switch, totally different flow rates. So the guy that was with me, like he was kind of like there to watch, like kind of learn whatever. I'm like, you need to, I was like, well, we don't have the right switch, but parts has the right switch. Run up and get it. And it was like an hour drive. I'm like, but just get it. That way we can at least get that part squared away or whatever. And so I'm sitting there just like eating lunch or whatever. And 2 of these students came up to me and they're like, "Hey, can we ask you some questions?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so they're like, "Well, what are you working on?" I'm like, "Well, here, let me show you." So I walked down because I had all the panels torn apart and everything because I'm doing the startup on it. And so they're like, "Wow," like, so wait, and they're like, they're pointing at the compressors and they're like, "Wait, what are they?" They're like, "Are those rotary?" I'm like, "No, those are scrolls. These are scroll compressors." And I'm like, "And then this is the heat exchanger. So the refrigerant and the water go through here and it's counterflow." And I'm explaining all this stuff to them. They're blown away. They're fascinated by it. They're like, "Man, this stuff's really cool," whatever. And I'm like, "You know what? I said, I even told them, I'm like, thank you for like, just for doing that. Like, that's amazing. That shows, I mean, for me, like that shows that those guys have some kind of drive to
Mhm.
like, just to walk up to some random guy. Like they have no idea what kind of person I could be. I could have been a total jerk to them for all they knew, but they're like, they had the guts and the initiative to come up and ask me some questions, be like, "Hey, can we ask you some questions about this stuff?" And I was like, "That's awesome." Like, kudos to those 2 guys. Like, I mean, I think those 2 guys, just because of that, I think I'm like, you guys are going to go somewhere because you had that initiative and just be like, "Hey, let's ask him some questions." He's been doing this. I
Yeah,
thought that was awesome.
that's the coolest thing. I always love people ask me questions. Some days I'm busier, but if someone asks me a question, I don't care who it is, I'm going to answer the question. If you're going to take the time to ask, I'm going to teach. I'm going to take the time to teach you, and just I think it's only respectful and right. I mean, you never know.
Hmm.
You could be talking to your next tech. I mean, someone could be ask questions and be like, "Hey, are you guys hiring? Do you guys have a training program? Where can I learn this?" You never know. That could be your next great tech. Your next great coworker. It just you never know where you're going to find people, man.
Oh, exactly. Absolutely.
Jason, one of my co-hosts, he's famous for saying, treat the dishwasher with the same respect you treat the manager, because you never know that dishwasher may end up owning a store, may end up running stores. It's like it's that's the thing,
Yeah,
man. And it makes sense. You never know where you're going to see someone else. So I always just try to treat everybody with respect and just do my thing. So that's cool. So
absolutely.
let's talk about trade therapy for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing you do. People come on and well, go ahead and I'll let you give your show what's up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started it. It's actually been about a year and a half is when I found, well, I mean, I technically started it 2 years ago, roughly. I had like an intro, and then it just sat for a while. But then, yeah, about a year and a half ago, then I started getting guests on to basically the idea and the premise of it is to have tradespeople share like their mental health stuff, like whatever it might be. And the reason for it was because so many people talk about mental health. Like we talk, like it gets talked about like as a concept, like, oh, we need to talk about mental health. Like mental health is so important, but it's like, okay, but that's cool. But we need stories. Like, I was talking with somebody else and it's like, when you come across something, like say that you come across a difficult troubleshooting scenario or whatever, you remember that. And then you relay that story to somebody else. And then somebody else will later on be like, "Hey, I remember Pat telling me that he had something like this happen. And this is what he did." You remember these stories that these guys tell. So for me, it's like, I want to share the stories of mental health where it's like, who are the people, what are their stories? Because that makes it more relatable and it makes it more tangible then. So I've had not a whole lot. I mean, because admittedly, people don't necessarily want to talk about their stuff. I mean, I've
Hmm.
had some great people that are thankfully have been willing. and I think I'm up to like 16 episodes or something like that now. I don't know, but not many. But at the same time, it's just nice because I've had people share about their struggles with addiction, with depression, with grief, ADHD, different things that they have or whatever. And it's just fascinating because, like, I mean, I could have two people. I've had a couple people that have had like ADHD, but their way that their take on it is just, it's different. Like the way they deal with it, the way how it like affects them is different. So it's just fascinating to me to hear some of these stories and to go into it. Like, and one of I just had Ryan Hughes from Misfits. Misfits of HVAC, which is a great podcast everyone should check out too if you don't. I know a handful of people on here do. But yeah, oh yeah, they are good people. I mean, but I had him on, and like, he was telling me about, like, his dad dying when he was 13. And I'm like, and that was like mind blowing. I mean, it's like, it's stuff like that where it's just, the main thing though is to share the stories. But then if someone out there like hears like one of these stories, and then they're just like, what, this sounds like me. Maybe I should go and get something, maybe I need some help, or maybe I need to go see a therapist, or maybe I need to talk to somebody. That's kind of it too, is just to, if there's somebody out there that thinks like, maybe that sounds like me, and then they actually go and get the help that they need or something like that, then cool. Like, that's just my way of trying to be, make the world a better place in that sense, where it's like, if one person out there hears a story and then they take the steps to make changes so that they can be a better man, a better woman, a better wife, better husband, father, mother, whatever, then then awesome. Like, I don't need to, if I don't, and I probably will never hear about it, and that's fine. Like, that's just the thing. It's like, I would rather just try to put it out there and say, you know what, let's see if what spaghetti sticks out there.
Yeah, it's really cool. I came on, I talked about some stuff, and just even coming on to talk about it is refreshing. Getting off your chest, I mean, mental health has a stigma. People always say, "Oh, mental health," but like you said, no one really talks about it. It's just it's a talking point, and then it kind of just goes away. Because to get people involved to actually talk about it, it's really hard. So I can see, how it's hard to get people to come on and open up about it. And I mean, I'm willing to come back on again. I had fun. It was cool to do. Sorry. But everyone has a battle. I mean, we live in this world, this phone in our face, and everyone shows their wins. Like, no one shows, and I'll show a loss. I will lose my mind on the internet. I'll show it all, unfortunately. But I'm guilty of seeing everybody else. It's like, it's win after win after win after win. I'm like, man, do these people not have struggle? Do they not have bad days? Do they not, do they not have, do they handle stress badly? Do they eat away their emotions? What does this person do? And we all have things, and some people aren't comfortable talking about it, and others are. And much respect and love to people that are willing to come on and share their stories of what they go through, how they overcome things, or what they did to make a difference in their lives. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's most of the time, at least as far as trying to get guests, what I've typically done is like, people will sometimes post things about like, dealing with something mental health or whatever, and then I've reached out to them and I'm like, hey, are you willing to talk about this? I've got this, here's my podcast, here's what I've been doing. And most of the time most of them, they're usually pretty open to doing it. I have had a handful of people that they're just like, nope, I'm not, I don't want to talk about that stuff. Like, it's too personal, whatever. I'm like, cool. I get it. That's fine. Or I've had people that are like, no, I'm not quite ready yet to. I'm like, that's fine. All good. And that's some of the struggle, is like having the people that are willing. So, I mean, and other times there are people, I've like Becca Stamey, for example, that she's an example of like someone that I reached out to her because I knew that what had happened with the scenario that happened with her husband, dying in an accident about a year and a half ago. I mean, super young, that. And so I wanted to get like her take on like how did that affect her world? I mean, that's got to rock anyone's world like that. I mean, and she was like, oh, absolutely, I will gladly share my story, just like, because she's like, I want to have, because basically it was almost for her, it's like, I want to help somebody else. Like, if there's someone else out there that's dealing with something like this, like here, I want to help them like be able to deal with it too. And I think I mean, it's kind of nice where it's, you have the, it's people helping people kind of thing, where it's just like, one person does one thing that makes a difference in someone else's life. And it's like that, butterfly effect or whatever.
Yeah. She's a really cool person, man. She does a lot
Oh
of
my
great
gosh, yeah.
and she has a lot of fun in her personal life too. She's an open book and she's a blast. So man, I enjoy talking to her. I consider her a really good friend.
Oh yeah, she is very fun. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll go back and forth like with because like she's got her cats and like so we'll we commiserate on the cat front and everything else. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, but yeah, it's that's the thing too. It's like you're saying with social media, like we're all in a sense like we're all invisible people. Like yes, you're visible to me right now, but like you're not here in my living room or whatever. And I've had the privilege of meeting like of making a couple of people out there visible. Like I've actually met them in person, which has been awesome. But in some way too, like sharing the story, it makes it makes them more human. It makes them more real. It's not like just some not some influencer out there just doing what they're doing or whatever. It's like they're an actual person with an actual like life and job and struggles and everything else. Like it's we're all human here. We've all got our own crap to deal with.
yeah. And it's made me realize, I used to be the guy that someone posts something and I get, I'd give him a hard time or, and I'm like, I wouldn't want someone doing that to me. Why am I doing it to somebody else? I mean, I'm taking out my problems on somebody else when they're having a bad day or they're having problems. I'm like, that's not cool. And I've met people along the way, and like one day I was having a bad day, and like the guy messaged me, and I never met him in real person, just like social media. And he messaged me, he's like, "Hey, you all right, man?" He's like, "A post is not very good." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right, man. Just having a rough day." And he's like, "Man," and we just started talking for like we talked for like 25 minutes. I'm like, and I felt better. I was like, man, I tell him all the time, I was like, dude, I was like, you don't know what you really did for me. I said, you took a half hour of your day and you really turned my day around, man. I appreciate that.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I mean yeah, and there one time where someone I was telling you beforehand where it's like I was on the phone with somebody for an hour, just
Mhm.
again some random person. He wanted to vent about something going on, and he vented, and he felt a whole lot better about it afterwards. And I was like, well, I'm glad you enjoyed our therapy session.
Yeah,
I mean, but sometimes this is it. Like sometimes people just gotta get something out there just to be like, this is crap. I can't believe blah blah. This is happening. Whatever this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes, you know, I know, like like for example, like my wife's not exactly a huge fan of social media. I mean, and I get that. I do.
mhm,
It's like it's again, it's that whole fake thing or whatever. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you don't have anyone to talk to about like random crap that it's like I can't believe I'm dealing with with so and so out there, like they're being such a jerk or whatever. And sometimes you just can't like get that
mhm.
out, and so in a way because it's like, well, who do you talk to about it? Like everyone else would probably give you some weird side eye thing, like, you social media person, whatever. So
Yeah, my buddy is like, "Oh, this is first world problems." I'm like, "Man,
yeah.
it's so wrong. It's true, but it's so wrong." Uh, and I have two really good friends, and Jason and Rich, and
Mhm.
we talk every single day, multiple times throughout the day. And one of us be having a bad day, or one of us be struggling, we'll talk, and it's just you got to make sure you have some people you can talk to. I mean, I used to be the person where I mean, I think I've shared the meme a million times. It's a pill bottle, and it's your emotions. And it's just bottle that up. I mean, and that was like my lifestyle. I'd bottle everything up until it came to a screeching halt, and then it was never good. It was it was bad. I mean, it'd be really bad. I'd lose it. Uh, you know, I'd cause troubles at home, cause troubles at work, and that's not how you want to live your life, man. It's not good on you.
No, and actually, what's funny is, for the longest time, I was using like that a closet analogy of like you stuff in a closet, and eventually it starts toppling. It'll eventually like topple out and crash on top of you. But
Mhm.
I mean, I was doing some gardening stuff, and we've got some crabgrass that's just like taking over in different areas. And I'm not sure if you deal with it out there in Indiana, but I'm out there like pulling this crap out. I'm like, you know what? This is like mental health. Like you see like one thing and you like pull on it, and the next thing you know, like there's this whole vine that just goes and it's going like 2 feet the other way because it grows like underneath stuff. And I'm like, because it's all under mulch where I'm trying to weed or whatever. And I'm like, this is like mental health. Like you pull out one thing and then you're like, oh crap, like this goes deeper than I thought. And then you just keep going and going. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And if you don't tend to it, then it just takes over your garden, the garden of your life in a sense.
Yep.
You know,
It's
it's crazy.
yeah. I just encourage anybody if they do need to talk to somebody to find somebody to talk to. I mean, um, most people are going through things they don't talk about, and it's just good to talk about it. So I really appreciate what you do as far as that goes, and I love seeing who you have on and hearing their stories of overcoming things or doing things. Just like you had Becca on to talk her story, and she she's a really good person, and it was good to see. Because I followed her for a while, and then she disappeared for a while, and she came back, and I seen her post some things about her husband, and I never knew what happened, and um, it puts a lot of different things in perspective, and it shines a light on things people don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, and I had found out, like I had to do some investigative journalism, as Eric and Andy like to say over there at the Make Trades Great Again podcast. Dropping
Uh,
names, dropping names in other podcasts.
I love,
Shameless plugs all around.
dude. I messaged him. So I had to catch up on some of the episodes yesterday and today, and you brought him up, so I got to tell a story. So
Go for it.
he was talking about the bullet point mounting solutions. He says, "Yeah, it starts something about Jeeps." He's like, "Yeah, people with Jeeps are going to talk about it, and I have a Jeep, and I have bullet point mounting stuff in my Jeep." And I was just like, so I took a picture. When I share this stuff, I take a picture of the episode. I always put the link in there, and always have some smart aleck comment. And I had a little Jeep going up the side of their logo, and I was like, "Yeah, this Jeep guy has that stuff. Thanks." Those two guys are like some of the coolest guys I ever met, and I met them at the Tactical Awards in Vegas a couple years ago. And I sat down at my table, and I was like, and I listened to their podcast, and like I seen the names on the table, and I was like, I started freaking out. I was like, I'm sitting here with Eric and Andy. I was like, this is crazy. This is the first time I've ever been to a trade show, an award show, or anything. And I sat down, and there was those two guys I listened to all the time, and it was like they talked to me like they knew me. They followed me back. We started talking, and now I'm like, if I have a question, I'll message them, and I'm like, this is really cool, man. It's just the power of social media can be used for good and bad.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so funny is like, because I've messaged two of them too, where because it's like I have questions, or it's like, you know, what was it like? Like Andy, for example, he put in like I think he put in like a Climate Master Trilogy system. Which, if you don't know, that a Climate Master Trilogy is like it's an inverter driven geothermal system. It's like stupid efficient, like 40 SEER can like someone put I heard that someone put one in their house and they could heat their hot water for $10 a month kind of thing. Like it's crazy what that thing can do. It's
Mhm.
insane the efficiency on it. I'm like, oh, I'd love to have one of those. But geothermal is like a niche kind of thing. And so Andy and I are talking back and forth on that or whatever. But anyway, going back to the investigative journalism thing was actually I like because at that time, Becca was working at Viga, so Colton was more out there, and I'm like, hey, Will, I was like, what's going on? He told me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so found out like, her husband's name or whatever. And then like, thank you, Google, good old Google search revealed. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is just, so it's like, yeah, no wonder she was off for like a couple months or whatever, that sort of thing. So, I mean, that was, and then whenever she was posting like that, every now and then she does, she does like, like the stuff that reminds her of them. And I'm like, hey, let's, that's why I wanted to get her on. And then that's when I think the big thing that she said, and goes for anything, is just like, you're allowed to feel your feelings.
Mhm.
Like, don't, like you're saying, like, you can't bottle that stuff up. Like, you just got to let it out, because if you don't, then you're just going to, like you're saying, like you bottle it up and then it's like a soda bottle and it's going to explode on you when you shake it up too much kind of thing,
Mhm.
So yeah, but it's definitely been nice to get people to share their stories. And I mean, like again, I'm so grateful for everyone that's willing to open up. Like, I mean, I started this just because I was like, well, we'll see. Let's see what happens. I mean, so I mean, it's still going, but it's again, it's I just kind of like pick and choose. There's no regularity, no rhyme or reason to it. It's just kind of like, someone's out there that's like, hey, I want to share a mental health story. I'm like, okay, here I am. Let's go for it. Pick a time and let's do it.
Well, I love it, man. I love what you're doing for the industry and for people in general. And you're affecting lives, whether people talking to you, tell you about it or not. I mean, the stuff you're doing is really cool. It is making a difference. You know, I always find it weird when someone like, "Oh, I listen to this podcast and I learned this." And I hope people reach out to you or someone reach out to you one day. Is like, "Hey, I listened to this and I realized I had this problem and it helped change it." So I hope you get to experience that soon.
Yeah, I mean, who knows someday. But I mean, at least in the meantime, I have definitely made an impact with people that are just like, yeah, I know, I proofread my post now just to make sure that you don't come on and like scold me or whatever. I'm just like, see, I've done my job.
Oh yeah, that's the funniest thing in the world. I'm like, this guy is scolding me for my post, and he has a podcast about mental health, and he's bullying me on my post. I was like, this is great. This is great.
I am. Oh man, what was it? What was it? Ty Brannaman. Good old Ty Brannaman. Like he made like these posts because like somebody made a comment. It's like this guy needs to learn how to spell. And then
talk today. I was like, oh man, poor Ty.
And I even said something and whatever. And I was like, I just said, hey, I think you need to proofread a little bit better. That's all I said.
Yeah.
And then that guy made that comment, and I said, see, this is how I don't correct people. I'm not an asshole to them. See.
It's all in good fun. A lot of times I'm in a hurry to get it out there because, like I said, I have ADHD, and if I don't get it out there, I forget it. And I don't proofread it, and then like you catch me, and sometimes I just leave it. Like sometimes it's funny because people like you misspell stuff, and it creates engagement because people are trolls. I'm like people will people will like go on about like the stupidest mistake, and I could fix it. And most of the time, I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it there. Let's see what happens.
Most of the time, at least it depends, but a lot of times, sometimes like people will then correct it, they'll fix it, or then but anytime like I make some kind of correction now, actually sometimes I don't even make correction, I just like leave an emoji, just like a little smirk emoji, and then someone's like, what did dang it.
Yeah, it don't take much. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but I will tag the podcast in the description so people can find you, and I'll link to your Instagram as well so people can find you on there.
Sweet.
You're a really cool dude. You do a lot of good stuff. You do some great work for the industry. You do some great work for mental health for the trades as well. So I really appreciate you coming on. We had to do it again. This is episode 2, but the first one's no longer available, unfortunately.
Yeah. I had to ask you to pull it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, it's good reasoning. I mean, it happens. But I really appreciate you coming on, Matt. You're a great guy. 6 kids. I thought it was about 3. You got a 6th coming. I don't know. Do you drive a minibus yet? I mean, do you drive a passenger?
We have an express. Yes.
Nice. That's funny. So you can't get away from the work van. You're in it all day. That's funny. So I appreciate you coming on. You guys can find him on Instagram. You want to go ahead and put your plug out there?
Yeah. So HVAC_grammarian, grammar Ian, if you want to make it easier to spell in your head. And thank you, Pat, for having me on here. This has been great. Always enjoy chatting it up with people out there. Like I said, it's always fun to kind of meet the invisible people of social media and to chat it up a little bit and just talk HVAC and trade stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. One thing about that. So people on social media, like especially in the trades, they don't show their face a lot of times. So I sat down at the Tactical Awards 2 years ago, the one 2 years ago, not Vegas, but was it Atlanta? I sat down. I'm like, oh, who are you? And he's like, it's Vader. And I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, it's Vader the plumber. I'm like, dude, you never show your face. You always wear the So I kind of guilted him into showing his face more. So if I don't recognize you by your face, don't take it personal. All right, man. Have a good night, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Pat.